Hey kings, welcome back to the Augustus Maximus channel and welcome to the world of Hearts of Iron 4 and Poland, because today we are going to be trying out the monarchist, more specifically Habsburg path for Poland, meaning we're gonna get a Habsburg on the Polish throne. Now, this is a very interesting path, and because we are playing a Habsburg, and because it's a monarchist run, and because you just know that we are gonna have to go up against the Soviets and everything like that, I decided to turn this into a little bit of a First World War scenario. In the pre-game setup, I made Germany go down the Kaiser path, I made the Turkish go down the Ottoman path, and I made the Bulgarians go down the Ferdinand I path, just so we can get the band back together. And obviously I am going to be replacing the Habsburg Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but this time in Poland. And the Habsburg tree for the Polish kingdom does have a bit of flavor when it comes to restoring a little bit of the Austro-Hungarian stuff, right? Obviously, it's very interesting. It's very lovely. It has a lot of flavor, and I really appreciate that. And but yeah, just the beginning setup. Essentially, nothing too dramatic going on right now. I'm fairly interested to see how things are going to develop. But one aspect of the Habsburg tree that I really enjoy is the essentially retaking Czechoslovakia for ourselves, because it's something that I think the sort of, I don't know, Central Powers setup is uniquely geared for. Because if you were to go for Czechoslovakia on a historical run, it would be essentially a race between us, Hungary, and Germany to go for Czechoslovakia. And that's not something that's especially, well, it's not something we are especially geared for. And the game itself, I don't think even has the option of like splitting up the individual portions of Czechoslovakia between like a Habsburg, Poland, Hungary, and Germany, which would be interesting. Like, let's say we get like Western and Eastern Slovakia, the Hungarians get Carpathia and Southern Slovakia, and the Germans would get Bohemia. Now that would be a very interesting scenario. Maybe there's something like that in the fascist path for Poland. I'm not entirely sure, but it would be very interesting. But one thing that I really like about Poland, and Poland, I think, got maybe the best part of the rework, because I mean it's a DLC, but it affects an FLC essentially. Was Poland an FLC? At this point, it's been so long. It's been 5 years, almost 6. I really just don't remember. I don't remember at all whether it was Poland United and Ready. I know that, but I think you got it for free, right? I think so. I'm not entirely sure. I really am not entirely sure how the initial Poland release was handled. But the Poland rework, absolutely brilliant. Totally love it. I think I like it. There you go. Germany embroiled in the Civil War. And I especially like the economic tree. The looming peasant disaster is a little bit of or a peasant crisis, or whatever it's called. It's a bit, whatever. I mean, I get it, but essentially it forces you to immediately go down a certain focus tree path. But I really like how they handled the monarchy path. I actually like how they handled a lot of the paths for Poland, but the monarchy path is especially interesting because it's almost like a mod. It's almost something like from Kaiserreich, because essentially have to wait for individual events which give you the candidate for the throne, and I really appreciate that. It's very unique, something we've never really even seen before. And to compare like the No Step Back content to something like the Waking the Tiger or even Death or Dishonor, it's like it's almost like it's a completely different game. There we go, Frederick Christian, and that's the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth candidate. So we're not gonna go for him this time. There we go, the Habsburg candidate. That's our man, and there he is, immediately on the throne. Gives us a nice bonuses and everything like that. And yeah, but we still have to do a little bit of industrial stuff before stuff truly gets rolling. But as it stands right now, I really like the Polish. I really like the Polish tree. It's especially even comparing it to like the Soviet tree. I really like it. Has a lot of flavor, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. It's quick, it's nice, it doesn't have a lot of hassle, no bullshit, but it has a lot of flavor, and that's those are signs of a really good focus tree in Hearts of Iron 4, in my opinion. And another thing that I really like is because we created this especially unique scenario with the German Empire, the other major powers of the world are also adjusting, and Britain is decolonizing, so it's going to be very interesting. And here we go, support monarchism in Czechoslovakia. This is, it's part of I really like how they handled this sort of spreading your ideology, making other countries, basically Anschlussing other countries, let's just be honest, Anschlussing other countries. I like the whole minigame that they have you playing. It's not exactly, well, it's a little bit different than it works, for example, for how it works for example, Germany or even Austria-Hungary. But the Baltics and the Polish have this little minigame where you can essentially annex other countries by, I think the monarchists have this path, only the monarchists have this path essentially, where you just spread your influence in a neighboring country, and let's try and legitimize your claims, your regime, everything like that. Basically, spread your propaganda in another country. It does cost a lot of political power, but essentially it ensures that the other country, the AI, is going to say yes, and I think that's nice, because just leaving it up to RNG, and the only way of you being even able to influence the other country is by improving relations. It never felt quite right. It never feels quite right. It's just a little bit. It's a little bit strange. Now, it's a very different thing to talk about, for example, the historical situation where you play as Germany and you go for claiming you go for the Sudan crisis, for example, and then fate of Czechoslovakia and everything like that. It's the British and the French obviously get a pop up, but because it's strictly historical, it works out how it actually did, and it's necessary to essentially boost Germany in these historical situations if you want to have a historical World War II play out. But in these alternate history scenarios, I really like this stuff. Really like the sort of a little bit of role play attached to it. It's kind of interesting. And here we go, we should be able to, yep, there we go. We enter the Union, so they're basically a puppet, right? They have our guy on the throne, and they are a puppet, absolutely wonderful. And, we can bypass a couple of focuses. We didn't even need to arm anyone. We essentially just had a very, I don't know how I would say, very efficient propaganda campaign. A very efficient propaganda campaign that, just puppeted an entire country outright. So, yeah, those guys definitely deserve a pay raise. And let's quickly militarize the border with Hungary before they try and claim any shenanigans, because that really wouldn't be all that great for us. And here we go, Union with Bohemia. Yep. Annexed Cord, got their army, and I'm pretty sure, we just got their army, all the templates and everything. Absolutely nice. So we just Anschlussed them, but it was a little bit of a longer process than, for example, the Hungarians have when they go for Austria-Hungary, which is just a focus that if you don't know the prerequisites, which is having a certain relation with them, having built a certain amount of, having done focuses which essentially improve the railway system between your countries. If you don't know that you have to do those focuses, which there's no tooltip, by the way, it sort of just feels like you improve relations, click a button that essentially asks Czechoslovakia to either to either reject your demands, or there's a very high chance, if you haven't done the focuses, that they're gonna just become either reject or just become your puppet. And it's not exactly very rare that they just, let themselves be annexed and integrated and everything. But I think in the case of Hungary, after having annexed and integrated Austria, becoming Austria-Hungary, your industry is still kind of trash, and your units are still kind of meh. And Czechoslovakia has a lot of good industrial bonuses and fort bonuses and everything like that. So I think in their case it might be better to actually have Czechoslovakia as a puppet for a long time. But for us, oh my goodness, look at those railway. That's not a very developed railway system, my man. So yeah, maybe you should try and work on that a little bit more. The AI in general is the minor country AI is relatively terrible at upgrading their railway systems, which is kind of a shame, because when you take them over, you'd want to actually do something with that. And form Zapadoslavia, I actually forgot. Yeah, you know what? Let's become Zapadoslavia. Let's have equal representation in this great country. Yeah, so it's not just a kingdom of Poland. It's actually, somewhat an integralist. It's more of an integralist kingdom, and yeah, that's not actually an integralist kingdom, but we have equal representation of all Western Slavic peoples within our kingdom, disregarding the Germans, the Hungarians, the Lithuanians, the everything like that, the Belarusians, the Ukrainians, blah blah blah. Doesn't matter, a union of Western Slavs. Now that's kind of based. The Soviet-Lithuanian ultimatum. Okay, so Lithuania wants their stuff back, but okay, that's a wonderful tooltip. But actually, it's the Soviet Union that wants their stuff back. So now this is a very very interesting situation. I think it has to do with Germany becoming more, Germany going down the monarchist route. I'm pretty sure, because that's the, when Germany goes more monarchist, when Germany essentially goes monarchist, or democratic, but usually when they go monarchist, the Soviet Union goes absolutely insane with their industrialization and military preparation and everything. But I think this ultimatum has to be initiated by Lithuania. So it might have something to do with us going the Habsburg route, because it's the only route that doesn't have anything to do with Lithuania at all. But then again, I'm not entirely sure, either it's the Germans going monarchist, or it's us going down the Habsburg route. Either one of those two, or both of them maybe, who knows. And there might be some sort of special prerequisite, but if it has to do something with us, then I'm sure it's the Lithuanians. If it has something to do with... But this has to be initiated by Lithuania, because only the Lithuanians only the Lithuanians have a focus that essentially asks the Soviets for support when it comes to the issue of territorial claims. So this is kind of an interesting situation. Are we capable enough to fight them off? I do think so, because we did have it's only like a year and a half of preparation time, right? But we also got the entirety of Czechoslovakia. So we might actually be relatively immediate. Okay, so okay, there we go. So we are at war. Okay, and Lithuania joined in, which is interesting, because the tooltip only said that the Soviets would potentially join in. But I guess it is the Soviet-Lithuanian ultimatum. So it's very interesting, very interesting. A lot of flavor, as you can see, a lot of stuff going down, and I kind of like it. It's very interesting though. Very interesting, because the Habsburg focus tree like strictly speaking, it's the only monarchist focus tree that has essentially nothing to do, or one of the two. The other one being the Romanian focus tree path, but the Habsburg focus tree path has no claims on the Soviet Union, no claims on Lithuania, absolutely no other claims on the Baltic. Essentially, the only stuff you're interested in is Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Austria, stuff like that. So for the Soviets to now get involved, and they're actually, yeah, we're gonna absolutely blast through Lithuania right here, because the Habsburg path actually has a lot of really good bonuses for cavalry. So we're gonna just absolutely dismantle them. You know, the winged hussars arrived. Played out meme, but whatever. And yeah, Lithuania's done. Zippity presto. That's gonna be, yep, there we go. Nice. They gave me a lot of guns, and now we can focus on the Soviet border, which is looking kind of dicey here. But I do think that we do have a bit of an opportunity here for a couple of encirclements in Eastern Poland. You know, the old meme, invest in Eastern Poland. Well, it's actually true, because there's absolutely nothing there. So I think even if they push us a tiny bit, we might be able to hold them off. And because it's only 1938, the Soviets have basically not updated they're currently going down the Great Purge, most likely. They're currently purging themselves, and so it's it's going to be kind of an interesting situation to see what exactly happens here. But I do believe that there is some more units. A lot of the Polish focuses just give you units, which is interesting. I do like it because it saves time. We could do something with Hungary, but actually I think we're gonna just join the Kaiser. We're just gonna ask for help, because let's improve those relations. And Hungary renounces Trianon. That's interesting. But yeah, we're just going to ask the Kaiser for help, and let's see if he agrees. It would be really nice if he does. But up until then, let's just hold on and hope that yep, there we go. The Red Army still a lot of debuffs, so hopefully they do shatter themselves a little bit. That would be very nice. It's always southern Poland that gets pushed. I mean, okay, the Kaiser agrees. Absolutely wonderful. We created a faction, not the Central Powers, but the November Alliance, because obviously in November 1917, the independence of the Polish kingdom was promised, and so it's, blah blah blah, a lot of flavor, absolutely wonderful. We immediately bypass the focus that is basically requires us to have a faction of our own, which is the Between Seas concept. So it's our empire is actually looking mighty nice. Let's get some expeditionary forces, but essentially this is sort of a Habsburg, what's it, like the Hohenzollern, something like that, alliance, the alliance between the Austro-Hungarian Empire, except it's not the Zapado-Slavian Empire, between Poland and Czechoslovakia and the German Empire. And immediately we're going back at it with the Soviets or with the Russians. The Eastern Front has exploded again, and let's get to it. Let's hopefully we end up victorious this time as well. I mean, the Polish have a very good track record of actually destroying the Soviets in this period of time. They've absolutely trounced them in the 1919-1920 war. So yeah, it's going to be. Now we have the Germans on side, right? So what could go wrong, right? It's hopefully it's going to be relatively easy, and if it's not, then I'm gonna blame the Germans for not prepping a lot. And the German Imperial AI, which sounds interesting, but the AI of the German Empire sometimes has a lot of issues when it comes to military prep, especially very early on. Because you have to think, they just went through a civil war, which isn't really that great for your industrial situation. Even though, it means that their generals have ranked up a tiny bit, and their units have a little bit more XP. It also means that they have to recover from the civil war, and it means that they've spent their time focusing on the political path, not exactly on the industrial path, which the Third Reich AI usually does. You see very early on the basically the tree of the Third Reich. There is no political tree, so to say. Civil War in Republic of Turkey, absolutely wonderful. The Ottomans are gonna be back, and they're gonna help us a tiny bit, I hope. But yeah, the AI of the Third Reich, and when you actually look at the focus tree of the Third Reich, the default path for Germany, there is no like political decision there at all. It's just annexing countries around you, and that is very interesting. I think I think Paradox just didn't want to really get into the let's say the more spicy stuff that went on in the country during that period of time. So they essentially just skipped any sort of political stuff and immediately went into like Anschluss, take over the Sudetenland, Danziger War. It's all just military focuses, to be honest. And I mean, but that means that the German Empire has a bit of work to do, and that's why they're a little bit weaker. But hopefully, we're actually going to manage to push the Soviets back, because well, I mean, they attacked us, right? Alright, we've done enough defending. I think it's time for the Great Offensive. There we go. And even if, like, the whole Lithuanian-Soviet ultimatum wasn't, strictly speaking, tied to the Habsburg, to Habsburg being on the throne of Poland, I still think it's kind of funny that, obviously, the Great War was started because of an ultimatum by Habsburg to a neighboring power, and potentially, if this turns into a world war, which it basically almost already is, like, not strictly speaking, obviously, but, just an extra country or two, and you could essentially call this a Great War. In Victoria too, this would almost... Yeah, would this count as a world war? I mean, maybe one extra major power, and I think it would actually count as a world war, or Great War. There we go, a couple of encirclements in Western Russia. That always happens because the AI is trash at actually managing to defend their territory in Western Russia. And it's actually relatively incredibly easy to push into Western Russia. So it's going to be, I think this is going to be just fine. And plus we have the Germans on the side as well. So, it's well, we are doing a lot of the pushing, but well, the Germans are probably gonna tank a lot of the damage here. Let's be completely honest. And just a little bit further, and I'm pretty sure, yep, that lag can mean only one thing: the Soviet Union has capitulated. Absolutely wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And yeah, I mean, we didn't even try to go for them. I mean, if there was such a thing as sort of partial peace in this game, I'm pretty sure, like, when we started to push into Belarusia and the Ukraine, I'm pretty sure the Soviets would have called for peace, like almost immediately. Like the they include a lot of cutesy stuff like ultimatums and everything in the focus trees, but this was an ultimatum over a couple of, like, 3-4 provinces, right? That weren't even that important to the Soviets, or, I mean, pretty sure that, Lithuania really wanted Vilna, but we always go to a death war over everything, and it's I mean, that's just Hearts of Iron 4 for you, right? I mean, just like, why wouldn't you go for it? Why wouldn't you take everything if you can, right? It's a little bit interesting. But we now have an absolutely wonderful looking empire. It's kind of well, it's definitely union of Western Slavs and Ukrainians and Belarusians and everything. The Germans got a bit of stuff from it. And let's see what the Russia actually... Okay, so it's just essentially the White Russian, sort of the White Russian movement taking power, provisional government stuff, yeah. It's, I mean, that's pretty cool. They probably still have, like, just a Stalinist tree, because that's how Hoi4 works. But, yeah, managed to carve a pretty decent empire for ourselves, and that's, well, I say the Habsburgs have done quite nicely for themselves this time. And of course, the Germans can't help themselves. They have to schlieffen once more, and Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's understandable. After destroying the east, let's go west. The sort of Schlieffen in reverse, isn't it? Because usually it's you knock out France first, and then quickly focus on Russia. Whereas this time we absolutely trounced the Soviets, and now we can focus safely on the Western Allies. However, it is 1941 February, so I think the Americans might be joining in pretty soon, and that wouldn't be all that great. But let's they supported us. Let's support them. It only makes sense that we joined the fray for a little bit just to support them, and let's create a great empire for the Germans as well. There we go. Pushing into France is as easy as always. It's always just a little bit too easy, and I'm not entirely sure how exactly we're gonna deal with Britain, because we have like 2 ports in Poland. All the territory we own, we have like 3 ports. So it's probably not going to be exactly all that easy, and the Americans have already joined the war, obviously. So this is going to be very difficult to actually win. It's not going to be difficult. It's just going to take us such a long time to actually win. But looking at the state of the world, I think we're basically the dominant power, or at least the dominant alliance. We have the Russians, we have the Germans, we have the Great Polish Empire, the Habsburg Empire, essentially, and France has capitulated, and second armistice. But actually, fun fact, Bourbon France never got fixed. There is no Bourbon France focus tree. It's just in the same way it used to be back when Vichy France immediately became a puppet of the Germans and then joined the war on the side of the Axis. The Bourbon France just becomes a puppet of the German Empire and immediately declares war on the Allies. Essentially, it's they never patched it in so that Bourbon France gets the Vichy France focus tree at all. Which makes sense that you'd have to create some sort of alternate focus tree for them as well. But we have essentially won this time, and So, thanks, Kings, for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and see you guys next time.